of all these things that we're going through, it is the notion of rites of passage. And the thing about rites of passage that we generally don't really know about in our culture, because we've kind of we've glossed over many of them, is that rites of passage aren't generally things that we create. Rites of passage are things that we recognize. So we go through rites of passage because these are things that happen. Becoming a certain age is a rite of passage that was one that's generally part of a lot of indigenous kind of cultures. But becoming a certain age isn't something that you create; it's something that happens. And then you go, "Oh, this is a thing that's important for us to recognize." So rites of passage could be a way for us to take up a position in relation to the things that we're going through. So we acknowledge that not only are we going through difficult things, but we're gaining stuff as a result. That we're learning things about who we are. We're learning things about what's possible. We're taking certain positions in relation to what's going on. I talked early on about this notion of kind of thinking about who I want to have been, looking back on these things that we're going through now. If I position myself like several years from now, who will I want to have been as we've gone through this? And so a rite of passage, having gone through a rite of passage, a passage that we're going through, we can acknowledge that in the context of having been able to stand up for those things that we're standing up for, having been able to hang on to those things that are important to us, and acknowledging why they're important to us and how they ultimately reflect things that matter to us in terms of who we are, who we want to be, how we want the world to evolve from where we are. So in that way, this notion of rites of passage is an acknowledgement and a paying attention to certain experiences that we're going through, instead of just being, it's another day and that day sucked. And like when the dehumidifier turns on in the middle of your thing that you're trying to do. So as the world continues to unfold and evolve, things are happening to us. We're having experiences, we're taking positions, we're making choices. We can acknowledge those, recognize those, and kind of attend to those in ways that honor them. And this can be acknowledged and thought of as sort of our response to rites of passage, and then kind of reheightening that is in us as a culture, that we're no longer just kind of going through this thing and then that thing, and we're overwhelmed and everything sucks and everything's really hard and there's really no meaning to anything. It's important, I think, to point out that meaning isn't something that happens. Meaning is something that we achieve when we attend to something that's gone on. There are many, many things that can happen in our lives that have the meaning gets lost because we don't actually pay attention to it. It's more about paying attention to the things happening and realizing that the choices that I'm making right now have an effect on my life and the lives of people around me, and I can attend to that, and I can acknowledge that, and we can celebrate that in a way that lifts it up. So we start to see that the things that we're doing, the choices that we're making, are things that matter and have effects. And in that way, we start to see how we're really involved in our world in a way that we've kind of been discouraged from attending to. Here's a little interesting kind of language thing that is very prevalent in our life, at least in my life. When I talk about things like the brain does this or the heart does that, no, it's my brain and my heart, and I am doing these things. Linguistically, even physiologically, we've kind of been removed from the effect that we have on the world around us and our own lives. So just thinking about how we even describe the things that we describe starts to illuminate how our kind of active involvement in what happens has been removed. We've kind of been invited in this position of kind of this passive interaction with the things that happen. It's really, I'm really making my heart beat right now. I am really doing that. That can totally freak some people out. So if you have a panic attack thinking about the idea that not only are you making your heart beat right now, but you're going to have to keep doing that, think about this. You've been doing it for a long time and everything's going to come out all right, which means you've got this capacity and this skill. The only difference is you're kind of going, oh, this is really something that I do, in a way of, wow, I can actually give myself credit for that I am doing this thing. This isn't some autonomic nervous system making this happen. Where is that? Where is that? Well, it's just you. It always has been you, always will be you. So if you think about yourself, maybe in that capacity, that might even heighten once again the sense of, wow, I heal my wounds. Whoa, if I get a cut on my finger, I fix that myself. Yes, you do. Even if it's putting a Band-Aid on, you're still doing that yourself, unless somebody else is doing it for you. But in terms of the actual the knitting of this of the bone, that is something we do. We can knit them bones. It's pretty cool. And so when we remove ourselves from the bone knits or the wound heals kind of language into these are things that I'm doing, it might also kind of affect how we think about the choices that we make. These aren't choices that are made. These aren't things that happen. There's a part of every interaction that we have control over and that we can take responsibility for. And then we can get credit for it too, which is what I'm talking about. So anyway, this notion of rites of passage, it is not something that happens. It's not something that existed that the indigenous people, First Nation folks did. And boy, that was great. This is about something we can continue to do right now, where we pay attention to the choices that we make that are consistent with the things that we stand for and the things that we're standing for and holding on to and holding dear, and then recognize those things. And then that becomes, oh, wow, my day was about these choices that I made. And my day was about how I walked through this world in a way that's consistent with the things that matter to me. Well, that seems pretty cool all of a sudden. So think about that for today. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm actually back later, 5 o'clock today, doing a little live stream, some music. If you're interested in that, please tune in. But once again, really appreciate everybody who's watching these videos and paying attention to this stuff and sending me feedback and creating further conversations. And I just really, really digging it. So have a great day, and I will talk to you.